Welcome to the BVTV network, coming to you from the UK studios of BizVision. I'm your host, Malcolm Gallagher. This is episode 2 in the BVTV Looking Beyond the Car in Front trilogy with leading recruitment expert Grant Duncan. Hello again, Grant.
Hi there, good to see you again.
I just love the title of your book. I mean, I love the book, don't get me wrong, but I love the title. It just drew me in. Quickly, 30 seconds, tell me why you chose that title.
Okay, very quickly. My first career was in advertising, and my first job was as an account manager on the Metropolitan Police account. And as part of my induction, I was sent up to Stoke Newington Police Station to spend a day there, getting a feel for what it's like to be a police officer. Later on the day, there was a shout. That's when a squad car gets called out to deal with an incident. And an officer that I was following said, "Jump in the car and see what happens." So we set off, and the police car did this extraordinary thing, which anybody in a city will be very familiar with, is accelerating into the opposite lane to get to the incident. Sometimes in incredibly heavy traffic. So I was in the back of that car. Anyway, by the way, it was just a sort of punch up in a kebab shop, so it wasn't very interesting. But on the way back, I spoke to the driver. I said, "How do you do that?" And he said, "Well, obviously we're trained to do it, but the thing we're trained to do is to acknowledge that actually our brain is already processing the car in front. What my job is to focus on the car beyond that and the car beyond that, because that gives me my moment and my trajectory to overtake." And that actually stuck with me as an image and became a metaphor for this book, which is so many of us in our careers follow the car in front because, and we'll go and talk a little bit about this, because it's all going really well, and why not? The trouble is, we too often end up following the car in front into the Sainsbury's car park and wondering why we're there. So that's why the book is titled the way it is.
Yeah, it's typical that you're living in London, saying in front of the Sainsbury's car park. Mine would be into the Aldi car park.
Yes. Or Morrison's.
Yes, yeah. In episode 2, I'd like to seek your thinking on what I've termed as clearly seeing and assessing your opportunity. Now, I'm guessing it's the start of marketing yourself as you fit your ability to a prospective employee, or is there something else you give to us in your book? What's the best way to go about this stage?
Well, I think actually some of the lessons from the first segment will be very helpful here. So that's what do I need? What do I enjoy? What am I good at? I think having that framework is really important in terms of assessing what your next opportunity is, because hopefully there's a dose of also realism, but also unrealized ambition in that. The second thing I think people should do is think about their career in 10-year increments. So again, a bit, if you're following the car in front, you're thinking about your career in terms of next month, next year, in a couple of years. But actually, what do you want to be in 10 years' time? What does your life look like in 10 years' time? Yeah. Because whatever the answer is to that, then you have to reverse engineer that back into what the next 10 years look like. So again, that's about having more of a career plan. So frankly, if you in 10 years' time you want to be lying on a beach, you're going to need quite a capital sum, to get you there. So, the main plan for the next 10 years is make as much money as possible so that I can lie on a beach. But, then maybe it's I want to be a chief executive. So if you want to be a chief executive, these are the stages, you're going to need to think about to get to that point. So I think that's one quite, fun exercise and quite helpful to stop thinking too much short term. I think at a more practical level, I think is a lot about presenting yourself in terms of the how of your career rather than just the what. So we've all got CVs. CV is very useful, but they tend to be like a list, of what I did, the jobs I had. What they don't necessarily speak to is how you achieved and the kind of what you achieved from that experience. So what in our profession, the executive search profession, we talk a lot about competencies, and this is what this is about. It's almost like turning your CV inside out, and it's looking at those experiences you've had in the job and converting those into achievements. So through some generic thoughts here. So you're working in a complex matrix sort of corporate environment where it's really hard to get things done because it's so complicated. So the chances are your competency there, the how there, is about stakeholder management, is about delivering through influencing. So it's about bringing that out and talking about examples where you did that, because that can be very valuable, particularly in a sort of complex business world that we live in. Or another one might be that you're, working in an environment which is where there's lots of trial and error. Maybe it's a sort of high growth tech type of environment. A lot of these businesses are like that now. So the competency there is that you have agility.
Yes.
You have situational adaptability.
Yeah.
So what are examples there where you showed agility and situational adaptability? So what this bit is about, and this it features in chapter 8 in Where the Rubber Hits the Road in the book, is about how you turn up and converting that into a story, into a narrative that gives people a real sense of the real you, not just what the CV says. And I think the third area that's worth considering is, where you're working. So we all are, the companies we work in are, let's look at them as a planet. And we become very familiar with that planet. What I encourage people, and that might be in financial services or retail or consumer goods and services, what I can encourage people to think about is think about your transferable skills, because this is another way of getting out from beyond, the car in front. So, what skills have you got that can actually be transferable to another sector? So, for example, if you're in the retail world, that is a world that's been absolutely disrupted by digital. So I had to really very quickly learn about e-commerce and omnichannel and so on. So chances are you pretty much know that really well in the context of a consumer business. Well, take that skill to the consumer packaged goods industry, to the Unilevers, to the Mars, to the Reckitt's, who are really struggling with that because they have a problem. They have retailers sitting right between them and the consumer. The skills you've got, really can help understand how to navigate that, how to make the most of that, how to leverage relationships with Amazon and so on. So that's what I mean about, think about what your transferable skills are. And to a certain extent, the previous exercise around the how is a really good way, because what we are looking for in our business is what are those transferable skills? What are, the skills of agility or the skills of stakeholder management that aren't just confined to the sector you happen to live in at the moment, that can be moved into another sector. And that again becomes part of the where you can sell yourself.
I think it's really fascinating what you're saying there, and you've given us a nice blueprint as to solving what is I've seen as a very common problem. Now, moving away from CEOs, I've seen it when people in senior management who are aspiring to be entrepreneurs. Perhaps they've got to be because of cutbacks and that. And there was one gentleman I was talking to, and he says, well, what have I got to offer the people? I've worked for BT for 35 years, and he just couldn't see the value of all that he could take to somebody else because he'd been so blinkered within the corporate world. Do you find that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's one of the toughest conversations I think I have is with executives who are have had really good careers. They've done a great job. They've acquitted themselves extremely well. But, they've been in one company all their life. That's increasingly rare, but that does happen. Yeah. Or they've been in one sector all their life. And they become paralyzed by that. And I think it is one of the toughest jumps to make. And that's why I must say, to any of your younger viewers, do experiment. I think do try. I'm not saying move a job every 2 years, because that's also not a very good thing. But really, get out of your comfort zone and start to build what we call a mosaic career. Because what you're doing is you're exercising different muscles every time you go into a new company, into a new sector. That makes you, by definition, much more resilient and much more agile in the face of a new opportunity, and gives you probably more self-confidence, actually, that I can do this thing because I've been somewhere different already. But it is a challenge, but it does, in many ways, come back to some of the basic ideas I've been talking about. As Excellent. You start approaching that situation, think through some of those exercises that I mentioned.
Excellent. Thanks, Grant. Now let's give viewers and listeners details of your URL, which obviously viewers you can see on the screen behind me. But for listeners, let me spell it out for you. All the W's. Grant-Duncan.co.uk. Grant-Duncan.co.uk. Grant's book is called Looking Beyond the Car in Front, a guide to making the right career choices at the right time. And it's published by a renowned business book Publishers, Routledge. In business, thousands of strategies are developed, but very few are executed. It could be the same for your career change strategy if you don't plan an execution or a do it. So that's what I want to discuss with Grant in our final stage, stage 3. Are you ready for that chat, Grant?
Absolutely, looking forward to it.
Excellent.